This video clip, titled Alternate Patterning Distances, will concern itself with showing you a method using dry-fire whereby you can determine the height of the center of your pattern at a distance that is closer to you than the distance you're really trying to determine. Let me explain a little further. Suppose that what I wanted was my gun to shoot 5 inches high at 40 yards, and at 40 yards the pellet distribution is so scattered that it's very difficult to tell where the center of the pattern is. So suppose that what I'd like to do then to solve this problem would be to shoot at 20 yards. So how do I determine the height at 20 yards that relates to 5 inches high at 40 yards? So let me show you how we'll do this. We're going to go up here to the pencil, which will allow us to edit a shotgun, and we're going to take a look at my trap gun right here. The first thing that is necessary is we're going to go to More Settings, and under More Settings we're going to give dry-fire some very specific mechanical dimensions so that it knows the relationship between your bead, the top barrel, and the bottom barrel. So let's start in this window right here. Suppose that what I have is a gun that it's an over and under, it has an extremely high rib on it. And the distance between the bead and the center of my top barrel is 4 inches. So I've entered 4 inches. Then the distance between the center of my top barrel and the center of my bottom barrel is 9/10 of an inch, and I put that in here. That information now tells dry-fire exactly the mechanical orientation of my barrels. I'm going to click OK, and now I'm going to go over here to the first barrel, and I'm going to tell it that I want the gun to shoot 5 inches high at 40 yards. So the size of the choke isn't that important. I'm just going to leave the improved cylinder. The muzzle velocity will have a slight variation, and you can play games seeing how much difference there is between, for instance, an 1100 foot per second shell and a 1280 for trap shooters. And again, the shot weight and the shot size doesn't have much significance, although the shot size will have a little because they slow down faster and drop more. Let's put the average distance down here that we're interested in as 40 yards, like I said in my opening introduction. Then let's say that we want the gun to shoot 5 inches high at that distance. I'm going to show you, we're going to do this on both barrels because they are 9/10 of an inch apart. They're going to react slightly different. So we're going to go over here and we're going to put in 40 yards for the bottom barrel and 5 inches for the bottom barrel, meaning that the two barrels are converging perfectly at 40 yards. Now I'm going to click OK. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the patterning board, which I can get to by clicking the F7 button. And here we are now on the patterning board, and it is in the upper left, it's selected the first barrel, which is my top barrel, at 40 yards. And if I simply go ahead and click on fire, it will give me an electronic answer. And there's the pattern down on the patterning board, and notice down here in the lower left that it says that the gun is shooting exactly 5.0 inches above dead center. Alright, now let's go ahead and clear that off of the pattern. Let's now prove that the second barrel is doing the same thing, so I'm selecting the second barrel. Notice the yardage is 40 yards, and if I click fire, again going down to the lower left, my bottom barrel is shooting exactly 5 inches above dead center at 40 yards. Now let's go back up here, clear the patterning board. Let's go back and select the first barrel, and let's change the distance to 20 yards because we were interested in if the gun needs to shoot 5 inches high at 40 yards, what should it shoot at 20 yards? So I know that at 40 yards it's 5 inches high. So I now click fire, and it says for me down here in the lower left that it should be 1.3 inches above center. So now we've given you the answer to the situation based upon the mechanical geometry of the gun that I had, which has an extremely high rib, that the top barrel, if I were trying to pattern it at 20 yards to get it to be 5 inches at 40 yards, at 20 yards I want it to be 1.3 inches. Now let's go see if the lower barrel, which is 9/10 of an inch lower, has the same answer. So we're going to clear off the pattern from the patterning board. I'm going to select the second barrel. Then I'm going to put 20 yards in for the distance of the second barrel. And now when I click fire, let's see if it's different than 1.3 inches. And it is. Look down here. It's 8/10 of an inch. So if your bottom barrel with this configuration of a very high rib is shooting 8/10 of an inch above center at 20 yards, that means that at 40 yards it will be shooting 5 inches above dead center. However, the upper barrel had to be shooting 1.3 inches above center at 20 yards to be equal to 5 inches at 40 yards. Alright, now let's do one other thing. Let's go through one more exercise. We're going to clear that off of there. I'm going to go back and change the guns a little bit. And this time I'm going to set both of these guns to 33 yards. And I want to find out what the equivalent of 7 inches at 33 yards is if I look back at 20 yards. So I've now got the gun set up. This is the same gun. I just want it to shoot 7 inches high at 33 yards instead of our 5 inches at 40 yards. Same mechanical part to the barrel. All right. So let's go here and select the first barrel. It's set on 33 yards. Let's fire an electronic firing. And it says down here that that is 7 inches above dead center, which is what I put in my shooter's information table. Now let me clear that off the patterning board, select the second barrel, and make sure that it is firing 7 inches high. I just did that and it's 7 inches high. Okay, now we're ready to see what's the equivalent at 20 yards. So I cleared off the patterning board. I'm going to select the first barrel again. I'm going to put in 20 yards and I'm going to make an electronic fire. And it says down here that 3.1 inches above dead center at 20 yards would be equivalent to 7 inches at 33 yards. Now remember that number of 3.1 and let's go back up and let's test the second barrel. So I cleared the patterning board, selected the second barrel, put in 20 yards as I did for the first barrel, electronically fired, and I have a number of 2.7 inches. So now we've seen this done at two different distances. So can you kind of get your mind around this and realize that anything that you want to do, and you want to do it at a closer range so that it's easier to see exactly where the center of the pattern is, it's very easy to do with this dry fire patterning board tool because we can show you equivalence. So in summary, what do you have to do? You have to start out by defining your specific gun. You want to go to edit your shotgun. The first thing you want to do is go to more settings. And in more settings you want to define the exact geometry of your rib, top barrel, bottom barrel relationship before you get started. Then you say OK. Then you come into your shooter's information table. You select the distance that you say that the gun that you're trying to get the gun to shoot, and let's take another one. Let's say that at 24 yards we want the gun to shoot 12 inches high. This would be kind of typical for the first shot on ATA doubles. We'd go over here then and we put in 24 yards and we would put in 12 inches. When I select OK, then basically I'm going to come up here and select the first barrel. It's going to be at 24 yards. If I fire that, it says down here that's exactly 1 foot above 12 inches. Now let me go ahead and change this to, let's make it 15 yards, which we hadn't done before. Clear the pattern off the patterning board, click fire, and it says at 15 yards it needs to be 5.9 inches above, where at 24 yards that would be 12 inches above. So I think I've gone through enough examples now so that you get the idea. I hope that you find this is a very helpful tool. It should keep you from making some drastic mistakes in the field. One example I can share with you is a man who patterned his gun at 13 yards, then multiplied the POI he measured by 3 to determine his POI at 39 yards. That's a big mistake, because your barrel bead physical relationship has a big part in the true answer. Let me give you an example. Suppose that I wanted my gun to shoot 6 inches high at 39 yards, and I was using a gun like I had profiled in this video, where it has a very high rib, it is an over and under, and I'm trying to set my bottom barrel to shoot 6 inches high at 39 yards. If we used the old cliche method, where you multiply by 3, if I wanted 6 inches at 39, then 2 inches at 13 yards would be just right. However, if you use the dry fire tool, using these numbers to find out what dry fire says, it reveals a very big mistake. It says that the 2 inches at 13 yards translates to 15 inches at 39 yards, not the 6 inches that you expected. So be careful. The high rib guns of today and using the bottom barrel can drastically affect the formulas you used to use years ago, when all we had was a rib that was riding right on the top of the barrel. So like I say, be very, very careful how you try and calculate how high the pattern should be at an intermediate distance. And I hope that this has helped you. That's all I've got for right now, and we'll talk to you later.